So hello, so when my EP came out on the 31st of October, I asked you guys out in social media land if you had any questions you'd like to ask me about it. It's taken me a month to get round to answering them, I'm afraid, because I've been trying to organise a date where me and Ollie could do them together, but we haven't because he's really busy moving house at the moment. So so I'm going to have a go at doing them myself. Most of them, I think, more replied to me than him anyway, but we'll see how he goes. So question 1, is there a song you'd like to record but just can't for whatever reason? Copyright, technical ability, don't speak Cantonese, etc. There probably are songs I'd quite like to do but don't have the technical ability to attack. I'm quite a big fan of Bert Jansch, but I've only ever really managed to cover one of his songs. But I don't think there's any I've not recorded because of that. Things like copyright are much easier than they used to be. You can just say, I didn't write this, and write in the name of the songwriter, and digital distribution people will take care of all that for you now, whereas you used to have to send a check to PRS to get your mechanical rights. So my early albums, I was a bit more careful about this. I used to write traditional arranged by for a lot of songwriting credits, because what I still do, but what I would do was take, listen to a half dozen versions of something and then try and work out how mine was going to sound. As it's got easier, I'm happy to say, on this new EP, they're all written by other people. None of them are traditional, really. They're all sort of 50s, 60s. So question 2, why, apart from alliteration, are you called Pistol? Well, when people ask me this on stage, I tend to make jokes. I say things like, I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die, or they wouldn't let me put 12-inch Pete on the posters. The truth is, it's probably mostly about alliteration. I wanted a name people could remember. Pete Wearn isn't a particularly memorable name. I slightly regret that I didn't adopt a different surname when I decided on a stage name. Not because I don't like the name Wearn, but just because people don't remember it and people can't spell it. So I used to play in a band called 44 Pistol. We were named after R.L. Burnside's version of the song 44 Blues. So one afternoon I was drinking in a pub, and there happened to be 3 of us called Pete at the bar, and the barmaid decided we all needed a distinguishing name to make sure she knew which one of us was being talked about. And I got Pistol. And then a month or 2 later I was booking a solo gig, and I wanted something memorable because I'd done a couple under the name Pete Wearn and I was not happy with it, and I decided to use the Pistol. What were your influences during the making of the EP? Well, there is a Big Bill Broonzy song, a Memphis Mini song, and a Reverend Gary Davis song, so I've got to include them. Yeah, I mean, sort of the concept of me and Ollie as a duo. There's a group or a duo called Cephas and Wiggins, which are a harmonica and guitar Piedmont style duo who worked 70s, 80s, 90s. And that's the kind of sound I have in my head. Now I've got Ollie on fiddle instead of a harmonica player because I'm begrudged as a harmonica player myself to hire another harmonica player. And obviously I felt like reviving the tradition of people like the Mississippi Shakes, who were blues bands with fiddles in, was quite a nice idea. So that's kind of sort of the overall sound we're going for. Influences on the EP, well, the arrangement of Death Don't Have No Mercy, the title track. Like, I listened to a lot of what was sort of doing well in the blues charts as we were working on it. People like Larkin Poe, who do slightly rocked up versions of traditional songs. So there's a lot of that in there. A load of the guitar shapes I'm using I stole from Ray Wiley Hubbard. He does a song called Snake Farm, another one called Mother Blues, that both work on that same sort of slightly stretched out E-power chord that I was using. Kissing in the Dark, we're going for a slightly jazzier feel. Pretty much straight lifted the Memphis Mini guitar part. Took me a little while to work out she was using A shapes with a capo and not doing it all in C. And then Key to the Highway. It's a song my dad taught me years ago, actually. Obviously, I love the Big Bill Broonzy version. The arrangement I wrote for it is in a different key. I was just trying to find a nice things to do in G, to be fair, with it, and I thought that was a good song to use those kind of shapes on. So question 4, what made you pick up an acoustic guitar in the first place? Which acoustic guitarist ignited your interest and made you spend the next few decades practicing and learning? So I was a harmonica player. That was sort of, well, originally when I was 7 years old, I had piano lessons. At some point that changed to electric keyboard lessons. I never really did practice. I must have driven my piano and keyboard teachers mad. For whatever reason, it never quite clicked for me, but I was really interested in music, so I persevered for a long time. And then I became a harmonica player at the age of about 15. And then about 21, I asked my dad if I could borrow a guitar to take away with me to university. So, I mean, when I first started playing, the first thing I did was learn some Bob Dylan songs, and then after that I was interested in people like R.L. Burnside and Son House. So I picked up the slide fairly early on. I moved 44 pistol. I was playing electric. I had a resonator, and then I had an Ibanez jazz box. I kind of moved back to acoustic. It was first off, Kelly Joe Phelps is one of my absolute heroes, so I was listening to him throughout. Tom Rush's sort of, I don't know, second, third album. The first one he did called Tom Rush, because there's two called Tom Rush. The first one he did was on the Elektra label, and it's a collection of sort of folk and blues songs. But I love the acoustic guitar sound on that. I've found out since he was playing a Epiphone Texan tuned down a step, but I really like the acoustic guitar sound, and it sort of got me keen to sort of move away from the resonator or the electric towards more of a traditional acoustic sound. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I have a new favourite guitarist every few months. The last year or two it's been Snooks Eaglin. I really enjoy his playing. He's got that proper authentic, particularly his solo acoustic ones, he's got a proper authentic sort of blues sound, but he's just got that amazing repertoire where he can pull in sort of bits of Django Reinhardt jazz and that funky New Orleans feel with his sort of thumb and stuff. It's all quite really good and very hard to do. So question 5, why did you decide to cover? Well, the first thing is I love playing other people's songs. I really enjoy it. I feel a certain pressure that I should be writing my own material, and I do feel a great sense of reward when I do it, but the actual physical process of sitting down in front of a blank sheet of paper and trying to produce a song I find a little bit difficult. So I mean, I have got stuff written for the next project and I am working on that at the minute, but I kind of wanted to do some traditional songs because I love playing proper blues, traditional blues. And I'm always aware when I do singer-songwritery stuff, people tell me I'm not blues. And then when I do, but then if I try and book myself in singer-songwriter venues, people tell me I'm too blues. So I wanted to do some traditional songs to sort of reclaim that ground a bit. And also with Ollie on the violin, I wanted to be more firmly in the blues camp, lest people think we were a country act, which people frequently do. But question 6, why don't you do romantic ballads? I'm not sure we don't. I mean, certainly written what I would consider to be love songs. So something like Young, Free and Beautiful, which was on the Pistol Pete Wearn and the Wildwoods Flowers EP, is a love song for my wife. I think it's a song about nostalgia for the early days of our relationship. I certainly do ballads, and any ballads I do, I'd say we've got a heavy dose of romanticism about them. Because, you know, I don't think actually being an outlaw in the Wild West was very fun, really. You probably ended up with wet feet a lot of the time, and when you weren't being shot at, you were probably cold and hungry. But that's not the story that excites me to tell, do you know? So I often, if we're writing a ballad as in a story song, end up, you know, picking the romantic side rather than the accurate history. I'm sure I have history lecturers from university who will be horrified at the liberties I take with the narrative these days, but it's about writing a good song, isn't it? It's not about, it's not an, I don't need footnotes. So What do I do when I'm not playing music? It's a good question. I mean, I spend a lot of time cooking. I cook for my family most nights. I took up woodwork during lockdown. I haven't done anything for a little while, but I've built things like bookcases and stuff. I might include some pictures of those if I can find them. I spend a lot of time fixing bikes because I like to ride bikes rather than drive cars when I can, because that's a nice way to get around that doesn't involve diesel fumes and expenses. So I'll be tinkering with a bike this afternoon to try and get the lights working again because they stopped this morning. I also love, like, my wife and I like watching television. We love crime dramas. I love spy movies. All of those kind of things. I quite like westerns. There's a western theme that runs through my music, which is lifted straight from A Fistful of Dollars. It's not there's no element of authenticity about it at all. Question 8. If you weren't making music in your current genre, which other genre would you consider? So, I mean, I think I do make music in multiple genres that I like making music in. I do love blues, but I also love singer-songwriter stuff, and I love early country, so people like the Carter Family, and I like jazz, and all of that sort of makes its way in. I'd probably like to understand the language of jazz better. There's some stuff sneaks into my songs. I have thrown the odd ninth chord and minor seventh and stuff, but nothing like, I don't really understand the sort of the language of modal jazz in the way I'd like to. But again, I think I'd only want to do that really because it helps me make better blues. But I like soul. Maybe if I wasn't doing what I'd do, I'd be playing rhythm guitar in a Memphis soul band or something. Surf music, maybe. Probably something that's, low demand but electric. I think it'd probably be a good job for me. I think I have a solid sense of rhythm, but I'm not really interested in taking the big solo. Question 9. Which artists would you love to collaborate with? That's an interesting one. So, I mean, my all-time heroes would have been R.L. Burnside. There would have been Kelly Joe Phelps and Hound Dog Taylor. Those are the 3 people who really sort of influenced me to pick up a guitar. So if any of those were still around, I'd love to work with them. Maybe Cedric Burnside. Maybe he could play drums for us. That'd be good fun. I've done some stuff during lockdown. I did some stuff with the Washboard Resonators, who I'd met at a festival. I'd quite like to work with them again, but Jack's a bit busy on tour with Postmodern Jukebox at the minute. Dan Walsh is an old friend of mine, and I'd quite like to work with him, but he's, again, always too busy. Or possibly, I don't know, I'm too far down the list of people he wants to work with, but pretty much anyone who's interested. Jack Blackman and I have worked together in the past. I'd quite like to do something else with him. That'd be good fun. So question 10, what is your guilty pleasure song? That's a good question. I don't really feel guilty about liking music. As I've done more and more stuff outside of my genre, working with young people and stuff, one of the things I've found about a lot of pop I would consider very commercial is, in fact, once you play it on an acoustic guitar, it sounds like folk music because it's all about the production. So I'm never, and there's only 12 notes and there's only so many ways you can put them together, especially if you're following, even some of the rules. So yeah, I don't think I feel guilty about liking music of any sort. I'm quite enjoying Stick Season by Noah Khan at the minute. One of my students asked me to teach them that, so I'm trying to work on that for my, wedding and birthday set at the minute. I think that's a nice song. It's quite poppy, but it's got a bit of that sort of indie folk vibe about it. I quite like Mumford & Sons, and I know I'm not really supposed to anymore because they're so uncool, I presume because they are public school boys and they are successful and they aren't really folk. But I think they're quite good. I think they were a breath of fresh air when they came along. I don't know. Do you feel guilty? Am I supposed to feel guilty about liking songs? I feel it feels weird, that does. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this, and the idea of if you're watching this and you have found it interesting, is you go and you listen to the EP, and I'll put links in whatever platform you're watching this on, because I'd really like you to check it out. I'm really proud of it. I think it's really good. But thank you for watching me today, and I hope you all have a lovely weekend.